and welcome back to another episode of the Pup and Away podcast. I'm Steph, the Pro Dog Mom. That's how you'll find some of my stuff on social media. But I am also a certified dog trainer, canine behaviorist, and a certified canine nutritionist, and the very proud owner of Pup and Away, where we specialize in pet care with the Behavioral Edge in San Antonio, Texas. I want to do something a little bit different today. Normally when it's just me recording by myself, I kind of have a script laid out in front of me, and I tend to mess myself up because if I don't follow the script verbatim, I get all confused and whatnot. So I have a very loose script in front of me. I'm going to kind of try to go more based off of just bullet points and kind of talk a little bit more willy-nilly about certain things. So let me know if this episode sounds better than some of the other ones that I've recorded. Last week we talked about some misunderstood, misinterpreted dog body language, things like yawning and rolling over, lip licking, things like that. Today we're going to be kind of keeping along the same vibe as that episode. I'm not too sure if I've had other episodes in between. This is a very big recording day for me, not just by myself, but also with other guests, and I'm not quite too sure in which order they're going to end up being laid out. So if you haven't listened to that one, go ahead, but even though it's not going to mean much of anything, you don't need to listen to the other one to know what's going on in this one. But we talked about some behaviors that, again, are misinterpreted, and I kind of wanted to do the same thing as far as like play behaviors that we may see. Certain behaviors that may start off well-intentioned, but can definitely get the energy of the play group just increases. It just escalates very quickly, and these are definitely things that we want to stop immediately the more dogs that we have. So if you have a multi-dog household, maybe some of these behaviors are okay because your dogs know each other really well, and it's kind of like you can say the dirty jokes with your best friend, but you can't say that dirty joke with someone that you just met. So the more that your dog is familiar with another dog, the better, and probably the more intense some of those interactions can be, but still stay safe. But the less likely that your dog knows, or the less familiar that your dog is with someone, maybe the more that you're going to want to watch out for some of these things. Another thing is, of course, the more dogs that you have in an interaction. So say, for example, if you take your dog to dog parks, or if you yourself are in charge of watching groups of dogs, say, for example, at a doggy daycare, the more dogs that you have, the more careful you are going to want to be with some of these play behaviors. So one-on-one, when it's just two dogs that know each other really well, these behaviors may not be bad, but especially in groups of dogs, want to keep a lookout for them. All right, so the first one is simply just having toys around. At Pup and Away, we allow toys for some of our daycare groups. We keep a running list of dogs who might be showing tendencies of resource guarding, and for sure are toy resource guarding dogs. And so if ever one of those for sure resource guarding dogs is on our list in our doggy daycare for that day, there is absolutely no toys allowed. But when I don't have any of those dogs on the list, we will pull toys out for the dogs, but still always be watching everything, because again, with play, things can escalate very, very quickly. So when it comes to toys, every moment is a little bit different. Even in my puppy preschool, I have toys out, and I've seen many instances where maybe that one specific toy is like, that's my favorite toy, and I'm going to get pissed at anyone that comes close to me. All right, so we can still have toys, but we just can't have that one toy out when that one specific dog is here. That's something that might happen. Or I have a puppy who knows who the general thieves are. I don't want to say bullies, because sometimes that means that they're doing it on purpose, but I have a couple of dogs who are just a little clueless when it comes to what's nice and what's proper manners. So they might just go and take toys from other dogs and then try to play with them with it. So they're not trying to be rude or ugly. But dogs take notice of that one dog always comes up to me and always takes my toy, right? And so then a history and a pattern begins to develop there. And so then sometimes I see a puppy will resource guard a specific toy against that specific dog because that specific dog has taken my toy so many times, right? So being able to kind of watch out for those things is really important. But in the sense of, again, when you have group play, one behavior that I see, play behavior that I see dogs do, which again seems very innocent, is the I'm gonna take my toy and like show it to you, like rub it in your face, and then as soon as the other dog tries to grab for it, it immediately turns into like a catch me if you can. And at first it's fun, but the longer that goes on, sometimes I see the intensity of the chase start to escalate. And the more that I see that the dog who has the toy, because now more dogs are chasing them, they're like, I gotta get away from you, I gotta get away from you, I gotta get away from you. And then it just, like, it's hard to explain, but just the energy and like the intentionality and the intensity behind it just definitely changes. I usually take toys away at that moment, because if I see an escalation there, I don't want to not do something and then for it to continue to escalate and then for it to turn into something. So having toys out is definitely something to keep in mind. Another one is humping. You have heard me talk about humping in many different podcasts. I just talked about it when we were talking about misunderstood behaviors. But humping can definitely happen mostly whenever I have like a mix of emotions that the dog is experiencing. Humping can be something that dogs do out of play. I know many dogs with really good social skills who will hump, and I see dogs with really poor social skills who like to hump. It's not always something that's driven by hormones. It definitely can be, and that looks different because it's also accompanied by maybe some like booty sniffing and booty licking as well. There's also a little bit more of like an obsessiveness that goes on there, where we're having to redirect that dog from that specific dog over and over and over again. Usually it's of a different sex, but not always. So that could be one thing, but usually whenever I see humping happening in a play setting, it's just a different type of play. And unfortunately, us as humans, we get embarrassed by that. We don't like that type of behavior, so we're usually stopping it. However, though, dogs who are on the receiving end of the hump typically don't like for that to happen either. So it's not a really good play behavior to be displaying. Oftentimes dogs will get frustrated and fed up with it. Hardly do I ever, actually not even hardly, I never see this be a dominance issue. Again, because really friendly dogs will do this and they don't need to establish dominance, or really non-confident dogs will do this and they're not a dominant type of dog. So hardly, again, never is it, in my opinion, a dominance thing. It's more of a play issue, or I'm socially awkward and I don't know how to play, so let me just try this. Or it's, I'm normally nervous, but now I do want to play and I just don't know how to play, like how to ramp up play to the next level in a good way. So unfortunately, sometimes these dogs are not the ones who are doing the play vows. They're not the ones that are doing catch me if you can. They're just going straight for the hump. I worked at a daycare once and we had two dog girls. One was a poodle and one was a golden retriever, and we could not get them to stop humping each other. They would just hump a lot and they would take turns doing it to each other. And after like weeks or months, I can't remember exactly how long, of trying to redirect them, they would always find each other. And that makes it sound like, a bit obsessive there, but they would still do other things. So it wasn't like top of mind, I can't do anything else sort of obsession. And so finally we just talked to both sets of their parents and we were like, your dog does it to them, they do it to your dog. Your dog never gets upset. Their dog never gets upset when your dog does it to them. And that's also one thing that we like to see in play is a reciprocation and role reversal. And they were doing that very nicely. So at some point we just told the pet parents, like, we're just going to allow it because it frustrates the dog. It can frustrate the staff if we're constantly having to go and redirect that. And we allowed it and they did totally fine. But that is the only time in my... I don't know, I've been working in doggy daycare since 2010, so the past 15 years of my career that we ever were just like, yeah, let's just go ahead and allow it. Normally, we are always trying to redirect that. Another one that is really something that we want to keep an eye out for is the zoomies. So for those of you guys who don't know what zoomie is, what zoomies are, it's just a very quick arousal and excitement, and then your dog just runs like crazy. Maybe they're running laps around the backyard. If you're in an indoor setting, maybe they're running around the coffee table and then on the back of the couch and then down the hallway and then back. So it's just like, oh, we're zooming. We're 0 to 60 moving very quickly, right? Now, if it's just one dog doing it, okay, that's no big deal. If it's 2 dogs doing it, most likely it can kind of be okay. Again, if they're very familiar with each other. But this can definitely turn into a dangerous situation in a group setting very quickly. So one thing that normally happens is, first of all, if they're going that fast, they're not paying attention to where they're going, they're running into staff, knocking them down, they're running into other dogs who might get pissed. So that's one thing. But usually what I find is dogs have prey drive and will most likely just start chasing something. So the one dog who starts getting really excited and running around eventually looks back and they realize, holy shit, I got 6 other dogs chasing me. Like, the intentionality and the intensity there changes very quickly. So then we see the dog running for play turning into, I must run and fend for my life. And then they get to the point where they turn around and they get really defensive and they start snapping at all the dogs. And because those other dogs are already very escalated as well, and now they're getting snapped at, they might retaliate that with snapping back, and then you have a whole situation where you're, potentially could have a dog fight there. I've also seen zoomies in the sense that the dog will run into like a piece of play equipment, or they'll run and like slide out and then run into, like we have big garage doors, so they run into the threshold of the door and like slam the side of their body against something. So zoomies just in general, your dogs do not have really good like self-awareness in those moments, self-control and impulse control in those moments. So that's definitely something that we are very quickly stopping as fast as possible. So yeah, we don't love zoomies in daycare. The other thing that can possibly be very innocent at first, but can turn into something, is something like water play, because a lot of water play will lead to zoomies. So the way that when you give your dog a bath and they come out and they do like the post-bath zoomies, running around and maybe they're scratching on the furniture and like going in and all the, rolling around in the bed or the couch and different things like that, it's kind of very similar. So now that it's summer, we have the baby pools out. We have very specific dogs, so they'll get in, they'll wait around, they'll play, and as soon as they come out, they'll shake off and then just start zooming. So we have to do a lot of like crowd control in that moment. We have to know who those dogs are. Maybe we keep those dogs on leash whenever they are in the pool. Maybe we're moving. We have a lot of wire crates on the floor. Maybe we're moving those to be sporadically spread out on the daycare floor to stop the dogs from just having free space to run around in. And if they run into the crates, they're so light that they slide with the dog. So we typically don't get a lot of injury or any injury with that. But something, again, just as simple as water play can definitely really overstimulate, over-escalate some of those dogs into zoomies. And the last thing that I want to talk about, as far as when you have groups of dogs playing, is any sort of accidental injury. This can definitely amplify things, not specifically for the dog that's being injured, but it can definitely activate prey drive. So we recently had a situation where, again, one of the dogs got into those zoomie mindset, was running around. She slid and she fell. She freaked herself out. And as soon as she had that happen, she started to scream. And at first we're like, are you screaming because you're hurt? Or you're screaming because you're freaked out? It doesn't matter in that moment, because when that dog starts high-pitched screaming like that, before it has to happen, I have to start protecting that dog, because when dogs start to scream like that, like high-pitched scream, I am injured scream, I don't want to make the noise right now because it's going to be not fun to hear. But if you have ever had a dog injure themselves, like for whatever the case may be, and they go, but very loud, it activates something in the other dogs, and their prey drive turns on like that. So even though it's not a dog fight, all of the dogs are very activated, and now they're going and, for lack of a better word, trying to attack that dog. So in that moment, luckily there was a bunch of us in the group, but we had to very quickly, two of us then started to grab the other dogs and move them while I scooped up the dog that was crying and like rushed her out of the group and opened the gate and like, shoved her out so that way nothing happened. It diffused very quickly. But those are just some different sort of things that you have to be aware of that can happen, and what could happen afterwards. So if you have any dog that starts to high school from pain or anything like that, it is important that you protect that dog's space as much as possible, which is hard to do when you have 10, 11 other dogs in there. I would say most dogs aren't going to activate into that state of mind. On that day, we had, I think, 10 dogs in the group, and 2 of them, their mindset changed very quickly into that prey drive. Everyone else was just like, what the hell's happening? So it's not like you're going to get everyone activated and jumping in for a fight, but it's just definitely something that you have to know could happen, and you have to know what to do to make sure it doesn't escalate into anything further than that. So a lot of I probably should have talked about that one first, because that's kind of a not fun way to end a podcast episode. Daycare's fun, it really is, and I make it sound dangerous, and it can be. I'm not gonna lie, it can be, but that's why it's really important that if you are taking your dog to a doggy daycare, that you're trusting your dog with staff who is well trained in what can happen and what you should do in response to those sorts of things, and also is transparent about those sorts of things, because there is not one doggy daycare out there that has not had one incident happen, because accidents happen. Even though you have the best group management, accidents can happen. Dogs play with their teeth and with their nails. We get accidental scratches and things like that from play. So unfortunately, it's just one of those things that as a pet parent you have to know could be a possibility, and to know the right questions to ask. Whenever you're researching a doggy daycare facility, ask them, are there, do you allow toys or not? Or why do you or why don't you? What does your temperament test situation look like? Most places will just do a quick, all right, I've introduced your dog to 4 dogs, should be good, toss them out into daycare. Ours is a 4-day orientation, not just a 4-dog orientation, it's a 4-day orientation. Ask what fight protocols are. We have revised ours actually just recently, and kind of changed a couple of things, and more along the lines of just intensity and what to do for certain things. But unfortunately, when you're in a dogfight situation, which I have been, in other facilities, and also at Pup and Away, I'm not going to lie, because again, things happen. It's important to know that the staff that you're with is going to be transparent about things that happen. That's actually one reason why I left a specific place beforehand. I was in line to be a doggy daycare manager, and there was an incident. I think I probably talked about this in the podcast before. There was an incident where a dog fight broke out. I stopped the dog fight. I was looking over the dog that was involved in the dog fight and not really paying attention. There was another dog that wasn't even involved in the original dog fight that was circling us. And the only reason why I know that it was circling us is because I watched the footage back later. And all of a sudden that dog just took the opportunity after the main dog fight had ended to attack this other dog that while I was checking them out. Luckily, but not luckily, got my hand instead of the dog, and wouldn't let go. I got, went to emergency care. Didn't need stitches or anything like that, just because it wasn't long. But that dog definitely held on and pulled and shook, and I still worked there afterwards. I was on light duty and doing some office work. But I heard the owner of that company tell the pet parent, the next week, oh, so-and-so is so sweet, wouldn't hurt a fly. And I was like, that's irresponsible. Whenever we have dogs, it's really important to be able to say these are the circumstances in which this happened, but also for the pet parent to know what the behaviors of their dogs were, because if they were to find themselves into similar situations for whatever reason, they need to know that their dog potentially can and has acted in a specific way that could be dangerous to other people or to other dogs. So transparency is very important. So as you're researching doggy daycares, just know that there's that inherent danger and that inherent risk that you're taking no matter where you go, but to ask questions of the staff, their policies, and just make sure you always have that transparency. I was trying to end that on a positive note, and I still feel like I failed there. But that's all the information I have for today, and I don't know how else to close that up, so we will see you at the next one. Now, that might be the end of the episode, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Follow us on social media. I'd love to connect with you. We have quite a few social media platforms. For nutrition and holistic pet care tips, follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Steph the Pro Dog Mom. You can find fun training tips on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Pup and Away SA. If you're in San Antonio and you want to bring your dog to us for boarding, training, socialization, and nutrition, come find us. But if you're not in San Antonio, we do training and nutrition sessions virtually. Yes, they can be just as effective, I promise. Please rate, review, and subscribe to my podcast on whatever platform you listen on, and please, please, please share with a friend. The positive reinforcement of knowing people actually listen to this and find it valuable helps motivate me to keep on recording. We'll see you guys at the next episode.